6 years deployed, came home expecting family instead. Got dad's text. We're at Madison's event. You'll understand if you ever matter. And mom bragging, we used your deployment pay. I said sure. Then posted the proof that shattered their perfect image in one night. Hey Reddit, I came home from serving overseas expecting family support, but instead I walked into betrayal. They erased my room, spent my money, and acted like I didn't exist. I finally snapped. And what happened next flipped the entire Parker family upside down. When you spend 6 years serving your country, you'd think the bare minimum you'd get is your family showing up at the airport to welcome you home. Nothing flashy, no parade, just a handshake, maybe a hug, and a "we're proud of you, daughter." That's what I pictured in my head while lugging my duffel bag off the baggage carousel. Instead, I walked through the sliding glass doors of the airport with no one waiting. Just me, my bag, and the awkward sound of wheels squeaking on the tiles. I checked my phone. Nothing. No, we're running late. No, we're outside. Just the quiet glow of a black screen. By the time I got home, I was already annoyed, but telling myself maybe they planned something at the house. Maybe it was a surprise. I've seen that kind of stuff online. Soldiers coming home and families crying at the door. Yeah, well, not me. My key stuck a little in the old lock, same as it always had. And when I finally shoved it open, the house was dark. No balloons, no food, just the faint smell of cleaning spray, like someone wiped the counters quick before leaving. I dropped my bag by the door, metal still clinking in the side pocket, and sat at the kitchen table. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Dad. We're at Madison's. You'll understand if you ever matter. I stared at it so long my eyes went blurry. Then, as if that wasn't enough, another buzz. Mom, I used what was left of the money you sent home during service for the decorations and setup. You'll understand someday. I read that one about 10 times just to make sure my brain wasn't messing with me. The money I'd sent home for years, telling them to put it into savings or hold it for me until I figured things out, had been finished off on my sister's dinner. Not a wedding, not a graduation, a potluck housewarming, like some cheap buffet where everyone brings a casserole. I actually laughed, but it wasn't the funny kind of laugh. It was the kind where your chest feels tight and you can taste iron in the back of your throat. 6 years of service, sleeping in tents, eating MREs that tasted like cardboard mixed with regret, missing holidays, birthdays, actual life, and my parents couldn't even be bothered to be home when I got back. Couldn't save a dime of the money I earned. All of it gone to make Madison's big night special. I opened the fridge out of habit. Half a jar of pickles, some wilted lettuce, and a pizza box with one cold slice left. That was my homecoming meal. So I sat at the table, metal in one hand, greasy slice in the other, and stared at my phone screen. It buzzed again. This time, a photo. Madison front and center in some sparkly dress, holding a plate of food under a string of lights. I recognized the lights immediately. I'd seen them online a few months ago and thought they'd look good strung across a backyard deck. Something I wanted for myself one day. Guess I didn't need to buy them now. Madison already had them. Bought with my money. The slice sat heavy in my mouth like chewing rubber. I shoved the box back into the trash and decided maybe I just needed to crash. A few hours of sleep would shut my brain down, maybe numb the sting of realizing I'd been replaced by a potluck casserole. I grabbed my duffel and walked down the hallway toward my room. My boots hit the same creaky floorboards I grew up running across, but it didn't feel the same. My hand hit the door, and when I pushed it open, I froze. The room wasn't mine anymore. The posters were gone. The dresser I'd grown up with, gone. My bed, replaced with a fold-out table stacked with storage bins and craft supplies. My walls, once covered with old sports pennants and shelves holding gear, were bare, stripped clean like I'd never lived there. It looked less like a bedroom and more like the extra aisle of a thrift store. I stepped inside, the duffel sliding off my shoulder with a dull thud. My metals clinked against each other inside, mocking me. I looked at the corner where my bed used to be, the spot where I'd stared at the ceiling as a teenager, dreaming about leaving this place one day. Now it was covered with a plastic tub labeled Madison's Fall Decorations. I tried the closet, same story. My uniforms, the old boxes I left behind, gone. The rail was packed tight with Madison's old dresses and Mom's coats, hangers scraping against each other when I pulled the door back. The final punch, a folded air mattress shoved against the wall with a note taped above it in Mom's handwriting, "If you need a place to crash." And it wasn't kindness. It felt performative, like something she'd tape up just in case anyone ever asked how I was welcomed home. A place to crash in my own house, in the room I'd lived in for 18 years. I didn't even sit down, just stood there with my jaw clenched, staring at the plastic bins in the empty space where my life used to be. 6 years overseas, missed birthdays, funerals, Christmases. Sent them money every month because I thought that's what family did. And the entire time, they weren't saving it. They weren't even keeping a spot for me. They were building Madison up and quietly erasing me. That was the part that stuck. It wasn't an accident. This was a choice. They didn't just forget me. They'd planned to move on without me before I even got back. I left the room, closed the door softly behind me, and sat back at the kitchen table. My boots were still dusty from deployment, metal still rattling in the bag at my feet. And the house, my house, felt like it belonged to someone else. They'd made it clear I wasn't family anymore. And if I wasn't family, I didn't owe them silence anymore either. I leaned back in the chair, the wood creaking under my weight, and grabbed my phone. The screen lit up with all the same crap I'd ignored for years. Group chats where my messages went unanswered. Family photos sent without me in them. Text chains I'd been left out of. 6 years of being treated like background noise while Madison got center stage. But tonight, I wasn't background noise anymore. I opened the folder I'd built over the years. I told myself it was just a place to stash things I didn't want to think about at the time. But really, I think deep down I always knew a day like this was coming. First file, a voicemail from Dad. I hit play, and his slurred voice filled the quiet kitchen. "Madison's the golden one. You're just baggage." I'd saved that one after a night I called home from base. I'd been halfway across the world covered in dust, working 12-hour shifts, and that's what I got in return. Baggage. Next, screenshots. Mom's messages bragging to Madison's friends' parents. "Oh, we're so lucky Madison's sister sends money home. It helps with her events." She didn't even bother to hide it. I wasn't a daughter. I was a damn ATM. And then Madison herself. A cousin had once sent me a screenshot of her text to a friend. Stuff I wasn't supposed to see but couldn't unsee. "My sister's boring. Backup daughter. She'll probably just end up fixing cars or something. Mom says I'm the future of the family. LOL. Backup daughter." I'd laughed it off when I first saw it. Told myself she was just being a bratty kid. But 6 years later, after everything I'd put myself through, that little phrase felt like a knife still stuck between my ribs. I scrolled more. Photos from holidays where they set a plate for Madison's boyfriends, but not for me. Dad's email chain, where he called me a discipline problem. Even though I was halfway around the world earning commendations, every ugly truth they'd thrown at me, I'd saved because I knew one day I'd need to remind myself I wasn't crazy. That day was today. I started selecting them one by one. Screenshots, audio files, photos. My thumb hovered over share. Not yet. If I was going to burn the bridge, I wasn't doing it halfway. I wanted the flames so high they could see them from Madison's precious housewarming. The phone buzzed in my hand. A group photo notification, of course. Madison, surrounded by half the family, all holding up plates of food, smiling like the perfect little sitcom. I wasn't even tagged. Not a mention of me coming home. Nothing. That was it. No hesitation, no second guessing. I opened my social feed, selected every file I had, Dad's drunk voicemail, Mom's texts about spending my paychecks, Madison's bragging about being the future, and even that Christmas photo where my chair was empty, but Madison's dog had a seat at the table. I dumped it all in one post. No captions, no explanation, just evidence. Years of proof lined up in one place, and before anyone asks, I knew my rights. One-party consent. Everything documented, dates logged. I wasn't careless. I'd covered my bases long before hitting post. Before I hit post, I stared at the screen. This was the line. Once I crossed it, there was no going back. And then I thought about walking into my old room and finding an air mattress shoved against the wall where my bed used to be. I thought about Mom's text bragging about using my service pay for decorations at a housewarming party, and Dad's voice calling me baggage. My thumb pressed down. Post. The screen blinked. Notifications lit up instantly, like a fuse had just been lit. I tossed the phone onto the table and leaned back, listening to the buzz of alerts stack up. 10 likes, 20 shares, comments, all pouring in so fast I couldn't even keep up. For the first time, I felt steady. Not invisible, not the backup daughter, just a woman finally telling the truth. But I wasn't finished. I dug deeper. Old photos on a hard drive. The kind of family moments nobody ever thought would see the light of day. Madison's 18th birthday, where Mom bragged about spending my deployment pay on her gown. Dad at some backyard barbecue telling his buddies, "My girl's over there wasting her time. Madison's the one who's going to make us proud." I posted those too. Another buzz. This time, a message from an old buddy I'd served with. "Sister, just saw your post. About damn time." That hit me harder than I expected. Someone outside of this family saw me, understood me. The kitchen clock ticked. Notifications stacked higher. My chest felt lighter. For years, silence had been my role. Tonight, silence was dead. And as the numbers on the screen kept climbing, I couldn't help but smirk. Madison wanted the spotlight. She had it now. It didn't take long for the wildfire to spread. First, it was a few likes from people I half recognized, names I hadn't seen since high school. Then came the shares. By the time the post hit 100 interactions, it wasn't just friends of friends anymore. It was coworkers, neighbors, people who'd seen Madison's fake perfect life plastered online for years, and finally had the missing piece of the puzzle. The comments were split down the middle. Some people were on my side instantly. Woman served her country, and this is how her family treats her? Disgusting. Another one. Always knew Madison wasn't as golden as she pretended to be. Stuff like that hit me harder than I expected. Strangers had more respect for me in 10 minutes than my family gave me in nearly 30 years. Of course, there were the other voices too. This should have stayed private. Air your dirty laundry somewhere else. And my personal favorite, classic attention seeker move. I read a couple of those before realizing it didn't matter. The truth was out. Let them choke on it. That's when my phone really started blowing up. "Dad, first, take it down. Now. You're embarrassing yourself. Delete it or don't bother calling yourself my daughter." I didn't answer. I didn't even open the messages fully. Just let the previews pop up across my screen, one after the other. His authority bleeding out of him with every text. Then Mom. "You don't understand what you're doing. This is just hurting everyone. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us." That one almost made me laugh. After all they'd done for me. Yeah, sure. Spent my paychecks, erased my room, skipped my homecoming. Real saints. Then Madison. Hers came in like a storm. "Are you insane? Do you know how many people are messaging me right now? You've ruined my sponsors. My reputation is destroyed." I put the phone face down on the table and let it buzz itself into the wood grain. For years, I'd been the one scrambling to defend myself, to explain, to justify. Tonight, let them scramble. A few minutes later, another buzz, different tone, not family. I flipped the phone and saw a message from Josh, an old buddy from my unit. "Sister, your post is everywhere, trending on my feed. Everyone's talking about it." I leaned back, staring at the ceiling. Trending. Me, not Madison. Not the perfect princess. Me. More messages rolled in. A coworker from a job I'd held before deployment. Knew something was off about them. Respect. A neighbor. Always wondered why you weren't at family events. Now it makes sense. For once, I wasn't invisible. People finally saw me. Not as baggage, not as backup, just as a woman who got screwed over and had the guts to put the truth out there. The phone rang again. "Dad?" This time I let it go to voicemail. Then Mom. Straight to voicemail. Madison too. One after the other, piling up. I imagined them all sitting around that potluck table, phones glowing, jaws clenched, while their carefully built little image collapsed in real time. Another message came through, this one from someone unexpected, Uncle Gary. "Took guts to do what you did. Proud of you. About time someone called them out. That one hit different. Uncle Gary wasn't the sentimental type. If he was taking the time to say something like that, it meant the cracks in the family wall were already showing. I poured myself a glass of water and just sat there listening to the constant ping of notifications. It was almost funny. I'd spent 6 years halfway across the world listening to gunfire, alarms, and chaos. Now back home, the loudest noise in my life was my own family falling apart in my pocket. For the first time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel erased. I didn't feel like the empty chair at the table. I felt seen. And if this was just the beginning, I couldn't wait to see how far the fallout went. I didn't even bother staying in that house another night. I packed what little I had left into my duffel and hit up my buddy Ryan. He didn't hesitate. Couch is yours. Stay as long as you need. It wasn't glamorous, but his apartment beat an air mattress in a storage room that used to be mine. Besides, being around someone who actually respected me was already more than I ever got from my own family. A couple days later, Dad finally called. I didn't pick up the first 3 times, but the fourth came with a text. Meet us here. We need to talk tonight. Attached was the address to some white tablecloth spot they loved to show off in. I threw on dress clothes and pinned my service medals to the jacket. Subtle, but it carried the weight of 6 years that none of them gave a damn about. If I was walking into enemy territory, I was going in armored. The address led me to a restaurant on Main Street, one of those spots my parents loved to show off in. Big glass windows, linen tablecloths, servers that pretend they don't notice you can't afford the menu. Through the glass, I saw them. The whole Parker clan spread around a long table, plates half empty, drinks still in hand, every phone on the table glowing. My post was the guest of honor tonight. The hostess froze when she saw me walk in. Her eyes flicked toward the dining area, then back to me. They're waiting, she whispered, like she already knew this was about to be a scene. I pushed through the doors. The laughter died instantly. Forks clinked down. The room tightened like a noose. Dad was the first to speak, trying to reel back that old authority. Daughter, sit. His voice cracked on the last word. I didn't move. Funny. 6 years I served, and the first order I get when I'm back home is from the guy who couldn't even bother picking me up at the airport. A few relatives shifted uncomfortably. Dad's face reddened. Mom leaned forward, her pearls catching the light. You think that uniform makes you special? It doesn't. It makes you pathetic. Airing out our family for strangers to gawk at. I smirked. Pathetic? No, Mom. Pathetic is using your daughter's deployment pay for housewarming decorations. Pathetic is erasing her room like she never existed. Pathetic is pretending to be the perfect family while treating me like a damn ATM. Gasps broke around the table. Madison slammed her fork down. Do you even understand what you've done? I had sponsors lined up, events scheduled. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. I looked right at her, steady as a rock. No, Madison, I didn't embarrass you. I just showed the world who you really are. If that ruins you, maybe you weren't worth sponsoring in the first place. Her mouth opened, then closed again. No comeback. For the first time in years, I had her speechless. Dad slammed his fist against the table, rattling the glasses. You will delete that post tonight, or you're no daughter of mine. I tilted my head, calm. Maybe that's the first honest thing you've said to me in years. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Then Uncle Gary spoke. He set his fork down slow, looked around the table, and said, Kid's right. Enough's enough. You've all treated her like dirt while propping Madison up on a throne built out of her money. Hell, we've all seen it, just nobody wanted to say it. All eyes turned to him. Dad's glare could have burned holes in steel. Stay out of this, Gary. Gary didn't flinch. Not this time. You should be ashamed. The cracks in the room were visible now. A few cousins shifted like they agreed, but didn't dare say it out loud. Mom's face tightened. Madison's hands trembled under the table. And Dad just sat there staring at me like he didn't recognize the woman standing in front of him. I straightened my jacket. You wanted me here? Well, here I am, but let's get one thing clear. I'm done being your scapegoat, your ATM, your backup plan. You can choke on your perfect image for all I care. Then I stepped back, scanning the whole table one last time. Their eyes followed me, some angry, some ashamed, some just stunned. You wanted me to feel small my whole life, I said, voice steady, calm. But take a good look now. I'm standing. You're all the ones scrambling. I didn't wait for their response. I turned on my heel, walked past the frozen hostess, and out into the night air. Cold, sharp, cleaner than anything in that suffocating room. Behind me, I could still hear the buzz of their phones lighting up with more notifications, more comments, more truth. And as the door shut, I realized something. I hadn't raised my voice once. I didn't need to. They were already drowning in the noise of their own lies. I didn't stick around long enough to watch the Parker circus unravel at that table. By the time I got back to Ryan's apartment, my phone was a war zone. Notifications stacked so high I had to clear them just to unlock the screen. And the funniest part, I hadn't posted a thing since dropping those receipts. The fallout was writing itself. The next morning, Ryan passed me a mug of coffee and smirked. "You seen this?" He slid his phone across the table. Madison's face stared back at me from some local gossip page. Headline: Golden Girl under fire after sister's explosive posts. I almost spit my coffee. Madison loved being local famous. She'd built her whole brand on perfectly staged pictures, fake smiles, and sponsored posts about skincare routines she never used. She had this whole persona about being classy and driven, like she was destined for big things. And now her empire was being roasted alive in the comment section. Within a couple of days, she wasn't just gossip fodder. She was a liability. Screenshots started floating around of her sponsors bailing one after the other. We've decided to move in a different direction. Not a good fit for our brand. We are reevaluating our partnership. Translation: We don't want your sister's post linked to us. And Madison had spent money like water because she thought more would always come in. She rented venues she couldn't afford, booked photographers, ordered customized decorations for parties nobody cared about. All of it fronted with credit cards and expected sponsor income. Now she was standing in a minefield of bills with no backup plan. Uncle Gary sent me a text that night. "Your sister's been calling everyone in the family asking for loans. Don't you dare cave. Let her eat what she cooked." I didn't need convincing. I was out of the Parker bailout business for good. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad were cracking too. Around the same time, Dad's firm, the one he loved to brag about, started distancing itself from him. A buddy of mine who worked in finance sent me a screenshot. The firm's website had quietly pulled Dad's bio off the front page. No smiling headshot, no proud senior partner title, just gone. Clients didn't want to be associated with a partner whose family was trending for all the wrong reasons. One even leaked that Dad lost a major account after my post went viral. The client apparently told the firm, "If she can't manage her own house, how can I trust him to manage mine?" That one had to sting. And Mom, she'd lived her whole life climbing social ladders, bragging about Madison's success to anyone who'd listen. Now, her little social clubs were whispering behind her back. Ryan's girlfriend's mom was in one of them. Apparently, when Mom walked in last week, the whole room went quiet. Not polite quiet, the kind where everyone avoids eye contact because they'd been trash-talking you seconds before. Mom ended up leaving early, fuming. Her friends didn't even follow her out. The same people she spent years impressing suddenly wanted nothing to do with her. I'd have paid money to see her face in that moment. The implosion inside their house was inevitable. Word got back to me through Gary that the three of them were at each other's throats. Madison screamed that Mom should have handled the fallout. Mom snapped that Dad should have controlled me before I posted. Dad roared that Madison was reckless and ungrateful and that Mom encouraged her. Three people who'd always stood shoulder to shoulder when it came to ignoring me were now tearing strips off each other. And me? I was stretched out on Ryan's couch with a cold soda in hand, scrolling through updates, watching them cannibalize themselves. Madison finally cracked first. She texted me late one night. "You have no idea what you've done. I'm drowning here. Sponsors gone. Bills piling up. You need to fix this." I stared at the screen for a while, then typed back one word: no. Her reply came fast. "You owe this family. After everything they gave you, you owe us." That one actually made me laugh out loud. I could picture her sitting in that sequined dress, crying into a phone, trying to guilt the sister whose paycheck she'd been living off for years. So I gave her my final answer. I already gave 6 years. That's more than this family ever gave me. Read. No reply. And that was it. The golden girl who never shut up had finally run out of words. 2 days later, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't expect. Grandpa Parker. He wasn't the kind of guy to get involved in family drama. Old school, quiet, the type who kept his mouth shut even when everyone else was screaming. I hadn't heard his voice in months, maybe longer. "Come to the farmhouse tomorrow," he said. "No small talk, just direct. Everyone's going to be here, and don't be late." Click. Call ended. I sat there staring at my phone. If Grandpa was pulling the whole family together, it wasn't for tea and cookies. Something big was about to go down. The next afternoon, I pulled into the gravel driveway of the old farmhouse. The place hadn't changed since I was a kid. Paint peeling, big oak tree out front, wind chimes clanging on the porch. Inside, though, the air was thick. They were all there. Madison sitting in her glittery dress, like she was at another photo shoot instead of a family meeting. Mom perched upright, pearls gleaming. Dad leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, that smug look on his face like he already knew the outcome. I stepped in, uniform sharp, boots still dusty. The room went quiet for a beat, then filled with fake chatter again. They didn't even bother hiding their expectation. They thought Grandpa had called me here to get put in my place. Grandpa sat at the head of the long wooden table, cane resting beside him, eyes sharper than any of theirs. He didn't say a word until I sat down opposite him. The whole Parker clan leaned forward, hungry for the show. Finally, Grandpa cleared his throat. "Enough." Just one word, but it cut the room like a blade. The whispers died instantly. He looked around slowly like he was studying each of them. I've watched this family tear itself apart for years. Favoritism, lies, backstabbing, and I said nothing. That was my mistake. Dad sat up straighter, trying to steer it. "Dad, listen, He jerked his chin at me. "Has been slandering this family, airing private matters. She's humiliated us. You have to see she's out of line." Grandpa's eyes snapped to him. "Quiet." The word landed like a hammer. Dad's jaw worked, but nothing came out. Grandpa leaned forward. "You call it slander. I call it truth. That girl served 6 years, sent money home, missed her life while you sat here throwing parties for Madison. And what did you give her in return? An empty house, a gutted bedroom, a family that treated her like garbage." The silence was brutal. I didn't say a word. Mom broke first, voice high-pitched, dripping venom. "She's manipulated you. You've only heard her side. We were supporting Madison because she has a future." Grandpa slammed his cane against the floor, the crack echoing through the room. "Future? You drained hers. You bled her dry to prop Madison up. You should be ashamed." Mom's mouth snapped shut. Madison, of course, couldn't hold her tongue. "This isn't fair. Do you know how hard I've worked to build my reputation? She ruined everything with one stupid post. Sponsors are gone. Events canceled. Everyone's blaming me." Grandpa turned his gaze on her, cold as steel. "Sponsors. Reputation. That's all you care about. Your sister bled for this country and you bled her wallet. Without her, you're nothing but an overdressed leech." Her face went red. She looked like she might cry, but no one moved to defend her. Dad tried one last swing. "This is ridiculous. She doesn't deserve anything. I've built this family name. I've provided. She's just a—" Grandpa's fist slammed the table, rattling every glass. "You built nothing but a lie. You call yourself a father, a man. You let your wife and daughter strip her of everything, and you stood there with your whiskey glass pretending it wasn't happening. You failed as a father, and you failed me as a son." The room went ice cold. Dad's face drained of color. Grandpa reached under his chair, pulled out a thick envelope, and tossed it onto the table. "Here's what's going to happen. I had my lawyer finalize this last week. It's signed, witnessed, filed, and effective. This copy is for you." Mom's eyes lit up for a second, like she thought this was her moment. Madison straightened in her chair. Dad smirked like the script was already written. Grandpa's voice cut their fantasies to pieces. "Everything, the farmhouse, the land, the savings, every last cent. When I'm gone, it's all going to her, and none of you can contest it." He pointed his cane straight at me. The room exploded. Mom shot to her feet. "No, you can't do this. She's manipulated you, twisted you against us." Madison's voice cracked as she screamed. "That's mine. You've always said family comes first. I am the future of this family, not her." Dad's fist slammed the table again. "I won't allow this. I'll contest it in court. Grandpa cut them off with a roar that shook the walls. "Sit down." They froze. He stood, cane trembling in his hand, but voice strong. You should all be ashamed. Look at you, screaming like vultures over scraps you don't deserve. Not one of you lifted a finger to support her. You erased her, and now you dare to demand more. Pathetic. His eyes locked on Dad. You lost my respect years ago. Don't think you'll ever earn it back. He turned to Mom. You raised Madison into a parasite. That's on you. Then Madison. You aren't a golden child. You're a fraud propped up by stolen money, and without it, the world finally sees you for what you are. Dead silence. Grandpa leaned on his cane and looked at me. You, girl, you've carried more than anyone at this table ever could, and you never once asked for thanks. Well, you'll have mine, and everything else I have to give. Don't waste it. I nodded, steady, didn't gloat, didn't need to. Their faces were enough. Pale, twisted, humiliated. I stood, slid the envelope toward me, and tucked it under my arm. Guess this meeting's over. I walked out of that farmhouse to the sound of my family's perfect little image collapsing behind me. Grandpa's words still echoed in the silence. For the first time in years, I wasn't the backup daughter. I wasn't the baggage. I was the heir. The news didn't stay inside that farmhouse for long. By the next morning, half the extended family already knew. The Parkers had spent years bragging about Madison's glittering future, about Dad's firm, about Mom's social circles. Now, the only headline was that Grandpa had cut them out of everything and handed it all to me. That humiliation hit them harder than my post ever did. Madison cracked first. My phone buzzed with a flood of texts. I didn't mean what I said. You have no idea how stressed I've been. We can fix this. Please, just talk to me. For once, the Golden Girl wasn't demanding or bragging. She was begging. I didn't reply. A few hours later, Mom tried. She called 3 times in a row, then left a voicemail, her voice thick with fake tears. We're still your family, and families forgive. You can't hold this against us forever. We need you back. I deleted it without finishing. By evening, Dad broke. His message was short, shaky. We went too far. I should have done better by you. Don't cut us off completely, please. That one almost made me laugh. The man who never admitted fault in his life was begging for mercy now that the will had gutted his pride. I let him sit in silence. They wanted forgiveness, but what they really wanted was control. They weren't sorry for what they'd done. They were sorry they'd lost. The next day, Uncle Gary called. His voice carried none of the weakness I'd heard in theirs. Proud of you, kid. Took guts to stand up in front of them like that. Didn't feel like guts, I said. Felt like survival. That's the same thing sometimes. He paused. Listen, I've got a spot open at the company. It's yours if you want it. Steady pay, honest work, and more importantly, you'll be working with people who actually respect you. I didn't even hesitate. I'm in. The shift was immediate. Working with Gary was nothing like living under my parents' thumb. He didn't hand me anything. He expected me to pull my weight, but for the first time, pulling my weight meant something. Coworkers didn't see me as backup or baggage. I was just another woman on the crew doing the job, earning respect. At night, I'd crash on Ryan's couch, exhausted, but satisfied in a way I hadn't felt in years. Not from combat, not from family drama, but from building something real for myself. Meanwhile, the Parkers kept unraveling. Madison tried to spin her downfall online with teary videos about being betrayed by those closest to me. The comments tore her apart. Nobody believed the act anymore. Sponsors didn't come back. Creditors did. Mom's social empire collapsed. The same women who used to hang on her every word now treated her like a pariah. Word spread fast. The woman who raised a fraud and stole from her own daughter, she stopped showing up altogether. Dad's career tanked hardest. His firm didn't fire him, but they shoved him into the shadows. Clients bailed. Colleagues stopped taking his calls. The man who lived on power and reputation now had neither. And still, they kept reaching out. Madison begged me to help her rebuild. Mom cried about forgiving and forgetting. Dad asked if we could move forward. I ignored every single one because the truth was simple. I didn't need them. They needed me. And that balance would never tilt back their way again. One evening after work, I drove back to the farmhouse. Grandpa sat on the porch, cane resting against his chair. He didn't look surprised to see me. They tried to reach you, didn't they? He asked. Non-stop, he grunted. Figures. They're not sorry. They're desperate. I leaned against the railing. They'll never change. No, he said, his eyes locked on mine, sharp, even with age. But you did. You stopped being their shadow. You stood up, and now you're standing on your own. I nodded. For once, the praise didn't feel empty. It felt earned. Grandpa tapped his cane. Let them scream. Let them beg. When it's done, you'll still be here. They won't. We sat in silence, the kind that didn't need filling. By the end of the week, I wasn't thinking about Madison's debts, Mom's isolation, or Dad's fading career. That was their mess. I had my own future to build, one that didn't revolve around being used or ignored. I wasn't the forgotten daughter anymore. I wasn't the backup. I wasn't the baggage. I was the woman who walked out of the wreckage and never looked back.